Welcome to Bleav in Arizona State, episode 39. I'm your host, Bannon, alongside me, Mr. Evan Reiser. We are super excited to continue on with our guests these next couple weeks. Obviously, if Arizona State's doing good, then we're doing good. And, it's only right, Evan, because we know a guy there's levels to this a little bit, all right? Because when we do these, we obviously have some incredible guests from former players to beat reporters to everybody. But if you want to talk about embodying the level of greatness for Arizona State, this guy honestly needs few words of an introduction, but we obviously have to do the introductions correctly. But before we do that, we want to thank Bleav. Yes, Bleav Network for making this all happen and setting this up. We really appreciate them. Obviously, they've been super, super supportive of us and just continuing this brand. But Evan, we're joined by a true Sun Devil legend. I mean, there's enough said here. I mean, all-time leader for Arizona State's in receptions with 258, the all-time leader in receiving yards with 3,939, and the all-time leader in receiving touchdowns with 27. Member of the Arizona State Hall of Fame class of 2015, Mr. Arizona State himself, former MFL wide receiver, Mr. Derek Hagan. Derek, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm good, man. Appreciate that intro. 3,000.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
Yards. I should be at 4,000, but they shortened me. But it's all good.
Well, listen, I think based on the stats alone, I don't know who's going to catch you. I think you know that more than anybody. But we appreciate you coming on once again. I think let's just start off with the obvious. Obviously, with you at Arizona State, there's so many moments. Obviously, talking about the stats, all the all-time stuff. If you had to pick one, and this is kind of a tough question we ask guests off of the kind of the start of this, what would you consider your proudest moment as a Sun
Devil? Man, I think just being around all the guys, everybody that from the time we came in as freshmen in 2002 to leaving in 2006, man, I think that's probably one of the proudest moments. Obviously, winning games is always great, but there's nothing like, being around 110, 115 different guys, all different walks of life, different personalities, different, areas, different cities everybody lived in, and just all come together for that common goal to, win games and bleed that maroon and gold. So that's one thing I remember the most for sure.
Derek, as all-time receiving leader, it takes 4 years to kind of build that kind of resume. I mean, just super impressive. We touched on it earlier. 258 for 309. Wow, 3,939 yards.
You got it.
It took me a couple tries. But a lot of times now we don't see players stay at one school. And what was one of the advantages you had of doing all 4 years at Arizona State and being able to be on the field for all 4 years during your time?
Well, I think for one, there was no, if back then, if you transferred, you had to sit out a year. So there wasn't no transferring. When you went to a school, you knew more than likely you were not going to play as a freshman. You were going to, sit and watch the older guys, the vets. And for me, I think I was just fortunate enough to come in and be able to prove myself at a young, early age. I came in early, probably, way during the summer program when, the high school kids weren't even there yet. So I came in about a month and a half early and just got used to what was going on. And, I was fortunate enough just to play early. Guys like, Sean McDonald, Justin Taplin, Skylar Fulton, Daryl Lightfoot, those guys were in front of me, but I had to prove myself each and every day. And there was never a thought of transferring because I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to play in the Pac-10. I didn't want to play in the Mountain West. I didn't want to play in the SEC. Arizona State gave me a shot, and I took advantage of it, and here we are.
Now, it's so good that you're talking about the transfer portal because obviously with Arizona State, there's been a lot of transfers within the wide receiver position. Obviously, you see Noble Johnson, Jaron Hamilton. Just real quickly, just as someone that has obviously played the position, speaks it with Arizona State, what advice would you give these receivers coming in? And obviously, we know there's going to be more of an influx of transfers coming into Arizona State based on the success from last year, which we're going to get into. I want to get your opinion about the recent success. But what advice would you give these up-and-coming receivers coming to Arizona State this year?
Man, those guys, you got to put in the work. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the effort. You got to work your craft. You got to know the playbook. inside and out. You can't just focus on playing one position. If you're X position, you need to learn Z. You need to learn Y. You need to learn F. You need to learn the slot position. You don't want to pigeon your hole into a position where, if Dillingham or Marcus Arroyo calls a play, you only know the X position. So the more you know, the better. So those guys, I would say, just learn the playbook as fast as you can, because the more you know, the easier it is, and the faster you're going to be able to play on the football field.
Derek, I think everybody who has been watching the Sun Devils this year has been extremely impressed with what Jordan Tyson has done. What's something that you've seen out of Jordan Tyson that has led to kind of his breakout year this year?
Man, he's unbelievable. He's a talent. He's got the size, got the speed, guys has the elusiveness, and he's got the route running. And that's one thing about playing receiver. You got to be able to run routes, and for him to be able to really come on towards the end of the season. You can see, obviously, he missed a year being injured, transferring over from Colorado, but the sky's the limit for this kid. And now he's not going to go into this year being an unknown. People are going to know who he is. People are going to know who Sun Devil football is. And people already know that Sun Devil football produces great wide receivers. If you look at the history, we've always had great talent at wide receiver. Now, with a guy like Jordan Tyson, here we are again with a true number one receiver.
And it goes obviously with Jordan Tyson, just the success of this year, making the Peach Bowl, and having the that they've had, and obviously continuing under Coach Kenny. What have been your thoughts just to see this program, just be the way that it is now, to see kind of, activating the Valley, everything that Kenny Dillingham has essentially said, manifested, has come to life. Just
right.
Obviously being a part of this program, and not to mention, especially from what you've done, I wanted to also ask you, because, you're obviously coaching now. You've been a part of the Sun Devil organization in some way, shape, or form. Even post, I know that you were a sideline reporter for the Sun Devil Sports Network as well.
Yeah.
Grad, so we obviously got to show you love for that. But how have these just continuing to deepen your connection with Arizona State post-playing career, and just especially with the team this year?
Well, you know what? Obviously, it's being an alumni, you want to be around the program. It doesn't matter, in what capacity. It's just, whether it's going to the games, whether it's just, talking to, some of the players, giving them some advice. Because, now, obviously, I'm a lot older. I'm not 18, 19, 20 years old. So pushing 40 now. So it's good to be able to give these guys certain advice about, things that go on in the football world and stuff that goes on outside of football. So just to see where this team has grown over the last few years, because like I said, 2 years in a row finishing 3-9, and for the most part, it's like we've been that team that's always been hovering at a little above 500. Sometimes you have those seasons that are below 500, but I think now if we can sustain this this model and keep it going, I think the sky's the limit for us.
Derek, you touched on kind of mentoring and being able to show some of these young guys. You obviously made the jump into the NFL. Have you been able to talk with these guys about what your transition was like going from Arizona State to the National Football League? Have you been able to kind of mentor them? And then second, what was that transition actually like for you?
Well, a little. I've been able to talk to a few guys, but I think what's different now at my time at ASU, I didn't have no money. These guys got bread now. They're rolling around in Lambos and Ferraris and Bentleys and all those things. So it's a lot different. Me, I was rolling around in a 1995 Nissan Altima back then. So we call it the purple people eater. So so that was my whip. So now it's a little different. These guys. I'm glad the NIL has kicked in and these guys are getting paid. I wish we were, getting that type of, incentives back then. It was a little different. If you took a little money back then, you were for sure getting suspended and might have lost your eligibility. So times have completely changed. But these guys, they deserve it all.
And, speaking of deserving it all, obviously you getting drafted in the NFL. I know that your draft preparation was actually featured in 2 days in April. I know that was kind of like a big deal. And when that was coming out, obviously a great thing, by the way. Just that process and what was it like to be a part of something where it's super documented while you're currently transitioning in from the college to the NFL? Because we just had Mike Pollock on and he was on Hard Knocks. And we were talking about that with him, and it was just kind of interesting to hear his perspective from a player, but obviously you coming in being so young And now you got
Right.
all these cameras coming in when you go into the NFL. Talk to me about just that process and what was that like?
Man, it was, it was different because when you think about it, everything this day and age is all social media. So everybody has a camera, everybody has a phone and everything is being filmed. And back then, in what was that, 05, 06, we weren't filming things in that nature. So just to have, the camera crew around us, being at the IMG Academy down in Bradenton, Florida, we had a hell of a time, man. And there's nothing like it. Obviously the camera's on you, but we're still out there training, still out there competing because we know from January, February, March, those are three very important moments, very important months leading up to the draft process because you got your pro day, you've got the Senior Bowl, you've got the combine and stuff. So there's a lot of prep work that goes into it, but at the same time, we still try to make it fun. But I wouldn't take anything back from being down there, being able to train with a Olympic champion and Michael Johnson helping me with my speed and the other guys down there as well. So we had a hell of a time.
Derek, when you kind of came into ASU, you also had Sean McDonald, who was in 2002 a finalist for the Bolitnikoff Award,
Right.
which is so impressive. But what was it like for you being able to learn under him and then kind of translate that as you guys adapted to what was not having Sean McDonald anymore and now your team, who you took over as the leading receiver?
Well, man, Sean was awesome. Still is awesome to this day. Talk to him every now and then. So that's my boy. But he, from the time I came in, he just was really trying to show us the ropes. Because when you're coming from high school, it's a big transition. Obviously you haven't been in a strength program like the guys that were before I got there. I knew how to lift weights, but I really didn't know how to lift weights. So had to be taught how to lift weights with Joe Ken at that time, who's probably considered one of the best strength coaches in the country at that time, and still is to this day. I think he's retired now, but Sean was great, man. He taught me a lot. Obviously, learning how to run routes, learning how to watch film, understanding how to use your leverage, and there wasn't a lot that I needed to do as a freshman. I just had to contribute. Sean was that guy. So we still had, Sean was your 1,000-yard guy. You had Skylar Fulton, who was a guy that was just, Mr. Consistency, that was going to make plays when it needed to be made. And myself, I was just working my way into the rotation. And fortunate enough for me, I got a lot of playing time, was able to, break another great receiver's record in John Jefferson, his freshman record for most catches as a freshman when I first came in. And I think that had stood for like 30 years. So it was big, obviously being in offense with Dirk Cutter, love to put the ball in the air, and we made some magic happen a little bit.
Well, it's so great that we're talking about Sean because we're gonna actually have him on after you. Anything you get the first crack at it essentially. Anything you want to say to him, anything of that nature? I know you guys still communicate, and I know we've been talking a lot about him because we're planning to have him on next later on today. So anything that you could give us that we could use on him, or maybe we could bring up that you'd be like, how do you even know that? Obviously, yeah.
Man, just ask him who's the greatest Sun Devil wide receiver in the history of the Sun Devils. He'll tell you. He knows. And he's the one that's talking on the screen to you guys right now.
Perfect. Listen, we just got to ask those questions because we're going to have him on later. So we obviously appreciate, once again, we have Derek Hagan on Bleav in Arizona State. Okay, I want to transition just a little more into the NFL. Then I want to get actually into coaching and what you're doing now over at Portland State. But I wanted to ask real quickly, just from your time in the NFL, playing for multiple teams, Miami, Oakland, you name it. Out of all of those organizations, and I'm just going to ask a tougher question. I know that every organization in the NFL is different in the way that they operate. Which of those organizations, out of all ones that you played for, do you think had the most significant impact on you, from just the facilities to the team, just to all of that? I know it's kind of hard because there's so many moments from each one that you've had, but if you had to pick one, what would that be?
Oh, well, I grew up a Raider fan, but that's not going to be my answer, even though I was fortunate enough to play for them. But I would say the New York Giants at that time, they were, first-class organization. Obviously being there with Eli Manning and having Tom Coughlin ownership, on up and on down, everything was spectacular. They did things the right way from that time that I was there. We were fortunate enough to win a lot of games. For me, I actually missed both Super Bowls, which kind of sucks. missed the '07 Super Bowl because I was playing for Miami. And then 2011, I had left in free agency to Oakland because they came calling. So still thinking about to this day missing that Super Bowl ring. But the Giants, I would say hands down, first class organization at that time. Now looks like things have changed a little bit, the way they're making decisions up there, not winning games. So hopefully one of these days they'll be able to get it together.
Derek, you touched on playing for Dirk Cutter at ASU, and I wanted to get into that because Dirk had a long NFL career after that. And so what was that like being able to play with him? You talked about, the willingness to air the ball out and what was some high-powered offenses. What was it like playing for him? And did you feel like it prepared you for NFL offenses more than some of the other coaches may have?
Oh, for sure, man. Dirk was a no nonsense type of coach. It's you're either going to do it my way or you're just going to get the hell on. So he kept it real, and that's one thing you got to love about coaches. They're going to tell it like it is, and there's no sugarcoating anything. But one thing about his offense, it was explosive. When you got the quarterback, when you have the wide receivers, when you have the running back, and Dirk's able to dial up those schemes and those plays to put guys in the right position, because even when, I was getting double teamed, we had other guys that we knew were going to make plays, Matt Miller, Terry Richardson, Moe Mutz. These are guys I'm just thinking Zach Miller on that side when things didn't go so well on my end, other guys can step up and make plays. So that's what you want out of a play caller, guy that can get everybody involved, even in the run game, with Rudy Burgess back there, Randy Hill, Keegan Herring. We had some good guys that can really tote the rock. So Dirk, man, I think he just called it quits. I think he just retired. He was a Boise State's offensive coordinator. So see what they did in the making it to the college football playoffs with him at the offensive helm. So hats off to Dirk, man. So hopefully he enjoys retirement and doesn't come back no more. Just go sit down and chill out now.
Well, I'd be remiss talking about coaching. Currently, what you're doing now as the wide receivers coach at Portland State. Wanted to ask you real quick, just from the time of coaching, and even just back when you were coaching at Arizona State, what lessons from Dirk, or just kind of Arizona State as a whole, have you carried into your time at coaching?
Well, coaching's been, it was great, man. I'm not coaching anymore. Hung it up.
Got you.
I'm done. But my time at Arizona State and Portland State was amazing. Obviously being able to coach at ASU, place where I wanted to be, and really try to help take this program to new heights. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But there's nothing like coaching, man. Being able to have guys that believe in you, that want you to do well, and obviously at the same time, obviously I'm trying to teach these guys something. And I always told those guys, I've been in their shoes before, but the biggest difference between you and I now is just how do you guys prepare? So myself being able to teach those guys, whether it's the scheme, whether it's the playbook, whether it's understanding how to run routes, understanding how to get open, understanding how to block, understanding how to catch the ball, understanding how to watch film. There's so much that goes into football that a lot of people really don't see, that the time that's put in, inside the building. So I love it, man. It's a lot of fun being able to give back and really watch those guys go out there on Saturday afternoons or Saturday night and ball out, especially after all the stuff you've been teaching them.
Awesome, Derek. My last question for you is, if you could kind of make a perfect receiver for Arizona State to fit in a playoff of Jordan Tyson, what kind of build would you go with? Who's going to help Sam Leavitt the most in his next year and get ASU kind of over the hump in the college football playoff and hopefully into the Final Four and into the national championship?
Well, for one, man, it's your mindset. You got to be confident. You got to be confident in your ability. If you're not confident in yourself, nobody else is going to Bleav in you. And that's the way I played. I was a confident player. I was never the fastest guy, even though I ran a 4.4 at the combine. But if you're not confident, you're not going to go out there and get the job done, period. And when I was out there, I thought nobody on the other side could guard me one-on-one. It didn't matter who it was. I didn't care. And for me, it all started in practice. So I think for a receiver, obviously it starts up here. Then it's it's got to be the hands. Can you make plays in traffic? And then when it comes to route running, can you get in and out of your breaks? Because sometimes everything's not going to go the way you want it to go. But if you get out of your break faster than a DB and the ball's put on you, can you still make that play? So I think ASU's got some great guys. Obviously with Jordan Tyson being a guy now, and having Hines Ward, another guy that played at a high level, Super Bowl champion, in the building, and really teaching these guys. They've got a great mind, so they got to be able to pick his mind on a daily basis and understand what they need to do.
So, all right, I want to end on this because it's really interesting, because obviously I was deep diving into you a little bit more, because the last time I asked this question, it actually was a really good question, because we had DeMario Richard on. And he was obviously, both of you guys are both from Palmdale, California. And this was a really good answer for me. So I'm hoping that you're going to be able to double down on this. And this goes back to your time in Tempe. I want to ask you, in your time in Tempe, what is your most underrated spot in all of Tempe, in your opinion, that you used to go to, that you like? It can be anything that you can think of. Because DeMario had a really good answer, so I'm intrigued to hear what you got to say, because I feel obviously both of you guys are from the same place. I'm intrigued. So what do you think is the most?
You guys are a little younger, man, because on rural, or what was that, rural road, man.
How old do you think we are?
All the bars used to be down there. So I would say, I don't know if you guys remember Acme. There's a bar right there. Obviously, there's a bunch of dorms there now, sorority row or something there now. But it was a bar there called Acme that a lot of us used to go to back then, and it was a spot to be, especially before games or after games. That was a cool little hangout spot for us. So Acme Bar, giving you guys a shout out. I know you guys are closed down, and there's no more bars on campus no more. Dr. Crow got rid of everything, but it's all good.
Yeah. Well, Derek, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh man, appreciate you guys for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Once again, we have Derek Hagan on Bleav in Arizona State. Once again, want to thank the Bleav Network for making this all happen. Obviously, Derek, hopefully get to see you soon in Tempe, man. Obviously, I know that you're doing a bunch right now, and obviously I know the football season's coming up, so hopefully get to catch you soon. Once again, Derek Hagan on Bleav in Arizona State. I'm your host, Bannon, alongside Mr. Evan Reiser, and as always, Forks Up.